Boxing Day test, the Phillip Hughes fallout. Bernie Coen, welcome back to the show.
G'day, mate. How you doing?
Appreciate you as always. Look, I've got some cricket to talk, including to start with, in 3 years' time, the Black Caps, us New Zealanders, we get another Boxing Day test. Now, we're very excited about that over here. Are you Aussie cricketers as excited as we are?
Well, I think we'll be more excited about that series than the two teams coming out this summer, to be honest with you, with Pakistan and the West Indies. I think a lot of people are a little concerned about just how short some of these test matches may go. Pakistan obviously have some decent cricketers, but it's a matter of playing for 5 days. But we all know how good New Zealand is. And despite being an Aussie, I do like the New Zealand cricket side. I have to admit they're one of my favourite sporting teams. They just have they do have a way of going about this very nice. I think everyone's always liked the Kiwis because we don't want you to win that Test series, of course. We want to thrash you, but I think that's going to be fantastic because I think any player, the New Zealand guys will be just buzzing over that because everyone you talk to, whether they're Australian, New Zealand, English, West Indian, they just say the Boxing Day test is just one of the most amazing cricket events to play in. So, and I have been down there for a West Indies one when they were a classy side, and there were 80-odd thousand people there making enormous amounts of noise. So that's going to be a cracker when it comes around because there are few and far between with matches. Of course, South Africa haven't been out here a lot, and they're going to be coming out here as well. Down the track as well because they had Boxing Day test matches in South Africa, and at one stage it looked like they mightn't come out here again. So it's for a Boxing Day test. So that's some good news that we're going to have some decent Boxing Day test matches.
Well, can you remember what happened last time we toured?
I can't remember, mate.
Oh, let me tell you, okay. All right, it was 296 runs, 247, 206. I tell you what we did, mate. We fielded every single day of every test. We got absolutely rolled, bowled and whistled. We got bum shellacked at all three. And in that Boxing Day test, Trent bowled first over, wicket, of course, and then after that, it just went all downhill. So, look, it's 3 years away, so it's a hell of a long time. I mean, you know, but it's something very much to look forward to, this side.
It is. And my memory's so bad and there's just so much cricket these days, it's hard to remember what happened in the last Test series.
There you go.
Let alone...
It's interesting you say that, you know, you like the New Zealand cricket team, you like what I stand for, because I wanted to bring that up. Look, yesterday was the very sad occasion of the 9th anniversary of Phil Hughes' death. And at the time, if you can remember, the outpouring, the grief, and also the acknowledgement from all of the Australian cricketers that they wanted to change their mindset, their attitude and their behaviour. Do you really believe that has happened in the last 9 years?
Look, I think probably more so in the last couple of years since that South Africa drama, which really blew up because of the captain not really telling everyone what went on. That wouldn't have been anywhere near as bad if he hadn't have gone into the press conference and spoken about that. But I think what did change that, and it was interesting, was Phil Hughes, obviously, that summer, just going back on that, I remember the day quite vividly because that summer actually was Australian cricket had real problems in Shield cricket that for a few seasons where the pitches just weren't great for batsmen and they weren't scoring a lot of runs. And the selectors basically said this round of matches is going to be important in getting into the Test side. Some thought that a Phil Hughes 100 would get him in the Test side and keep him in there. And that day, I kind of think about Phil Hughes every time I go to the SCG or any time anyone's hitting the head. And I remember vividly that day walking past what was the control room at Channel 10 where all the records are coming in. And someone said to me, how long do you want this cricket to record for? Because it was a Shield game. It was I think it was one camera coverage or something at the time. Cricket Australia sent it through, and I actually made the remark, which I now regret making, but I will say at the time it was a flippant remark. I said, just keep recording it in case someone dies or something.
Oh, God.
I actually did say that. Yeah, and I said it flippantly, like meaning, well, you know, if someone pulls a hammy, a bowler's out of a Test series because we had a Test match coming up. And then about an hour later or so, it was when I saw the incident. I actually I didn't see the delivery, but I saw him fall to the ground and immediately said to someone, something bad's happened at the SCG. Now, obviously, now we know later on, having been where he got hit, he died instantly. But I think after that, there was a feeling of bowlers all around the world then realised that batsmen, I mean, it was just something that had not happened before. Had it been very close, Ewan Chatfield on his Test debut, former New Zealand cricketer, got hit in the temple and swallowed his tongue on the field.
Yeah.
When he was hit by Peter Lever, and Lever says that he actually thought he killed him. And Ewan wasn't a good batsman, as we all know. Back then they didn't have helmets. The bizarre thing about this was he had a helmet on, and it's just where he hit him. And I actually have cochlear implants, and I got hit in the ear by a cricket ball when I was 15, and I wasn't wearing a helmet. And I think back to that now thinking, gee, how many people were hitting the head or the side of the head playing cricket over the years and missed that little area behind your neck that you could easily kill someone. But I think after that, bowlers, and we've seen it since, even now, we see them when they bowl a bouncer, if they hit someone, there's far greater concern now, I think, with bouncers for any bowler. I think the Australians pulled it back a bit, and I think a lot of bowlers around the world did in regards to, kind of bowl a bouncer, hit someone, you walk back and you don't say anything. I mean, you saw that on the great West Indies sides, they rattle batsmen. But I think after that, the Aussies I think they did dull it down a bit. I think they did tame it down a bit, but I think it got a bit out of control, and there was a bit of arrogance again. I don't think anyone... I mean, look, you've got to have some arrogance to be a good cricket side. But I think, it goes back to when Stephen Fleming was captain of New Zealand and they were getting sledged by Australia all the time, and he simply said, you need to have a response. Just don't let them sledge you all the time and not say anything. So some of the New Zealand cricketers came up with some very funny sledges back to the Aussies. But I think they... Over time, I think cricket in general changed. I don't think the Aussies' attitude in regards to that killer instinct changed until probably South Africa, when I think they realised they were going a bit overboard with everything they did on the cricket field, although ball tampering happens all the time, and that wasn't the issue with that, really. I think that part of it was blown out of proportion because everyone did it, including the South African captain at the time, who had been busted twice for it. But, yeah, it certainly changed cricket in a way I think everyone looks at bouncers and things like that.
What about a guy like Simon O'Donnell and the attitude that he expressed on air a couple of weeks ago, where he was saying that New Zealanders are too soft and we shouldn't have picked up Kohli's bat and all of that kind of stuff, and too much sportsmanship and we should be more of a killer instinct. Does that kind of resonate in Australia, or does everyone just think, oh mate, that's just yesterday?
I don't. I think you've got to have some killer instinct. It's how far you go. I mean, to say that someone like Trent Boult is going to be a better bowler if he abuses the batsman, I don't know. I think it's up to the individual. I mean, there are some players that were ridiculously over the top in sledging, and there is a former Australian player that a West Indian, I named names, but a West Indian player when I was talking to him and I finished afterwards, and this is a former player, made a comment to me about this player, had no idea how much he was hated. By rival teams. Yeah. And I kind of went, whoa, and me and the cameraman just went, wow, I wish I had that on camera. But I think sledging, look, David Warner's tamed it down a bit. I think it's all about when players show an attitude and a bit of hunger. Like, I mean, Marcus Stoinis goes on when he gets wickets and tries to look like the Incredible Hulk and that. But I mean, I think it's natural to some people. I think maybe there will be a Kiwi player. I mean, you look at some of the top players, Kane Williamson, Richard Hadley. I mean, he didn't abuse people, but you certainly wouldn't have said Richard wasn't, didn't have any mongrel in him.
No, exactly.
But he was a good enough bowler. He didn't need to. I mean, I just think it's the personalities of some of the players. I mean, you wouldn't say Mitchell Stark's got a lot of mongrel in him as a bowler, but he gets fired up. But he's not like a lot of other fast bowlers. Josh Hazlewood doesn't either. I mean, if you look at the bowlers now, I think it's exaggerated a bit compared to what it used to be like. Because I think if you look at a lot of the Australian bowlers, they really don't. Sure, they get fired up when they get a wicket, but every quick guy does. But I wouldn't say New Zealand's too soft. I think they're an exceptionally good cricket side. I mean, India does carry on, and they're a good cricket side.
Finally, Bernie, you're working for Channel 10. You're doing a doco on the underarm. Has there been one? I mean, when I hear that, has there been one made before? I mean, it's such a fantastic incident now when you look back at it. I mean, I'm old enough at the time to actually remember it at the time, and all the aftermath with the prime ministers and everything else. What kind of angle do you take on that doco?
Well, it's interesting because I'm freelancing Channel 10, but doing work for Beyond Productions, who are producing a cricket in the 80s, and they've just had a commission. It's going to be on Foxtel in Australia. It may well go to New Zealand, and it covers a lot of international cricketers making comments. And there's some really interesting things. Greg Chappell was on it, talking about his mindset. There's a lot of things leading up to it. There's Ian Smith talks about it. Jeremy Coney talks about it. They talk about the controversial catch earlier in the innings.
Yeah, Martin Devlin,
And if you remember that series, going back, was interesting to look at the tapes. New Zealand actually gave Australia a bit of a fright in that series because they won one of the early matches.
Well, you won the first one, yeah.
First one, yeah. So you've got... I build into that. There's a lot of interesting talent in there and their reactions and things that happened, and some very funny stories as well that weren't told about. It's kind of, I do the lead up the earlier matches before it and kind of build up. And it's very interesting because you get some things that were said by the likes of Greg Matthews and talking about Kim Hughes is in it, who was fielding at the time and made the comment that he actually thought that Brian McKechnie had farted, and that's why Rod Marsh had walked away from the stumps. And he didn't realise that Greg had told Ian to bowl at underarm until it happened. He said it happened all so quickly that everyone was just like, what the hell's going on? It's really quite interesting when you look back on it and the people talk about it. And, I mean, Greg says he doesn't regret it. He does regret the fact that how it made look cricket, but there's a lot of politics involved in why he did it at the time, not about New Zealand, but about Australian cricket. So I'll let you know when it's going on in New Zealand and find out who's got the right to it, because it certainly has a lot of Kiwi flavour. And Jeremy Coney and Ian Smith are very entertaining, and we all know how good Ian Smith is as a commentator. And he wasn't a bad keeper either.
Devlin.
He was brilliant.
The Platform.
Bernie, thank you so much for that.